I hate my brother, and right now my body is just a ticking bomb waiting to explode, because he decided to do this with the money my entire family saved up for my urgent surgery. Right this minute, as I'm typing this, a major tremor is running through me. This entire story feels so dirty, so unreal, that I, Sarah Miller, 35 years old, a seemingly successful accountant, am sitting here recounting the events of the last month just to try and grasp what happened. You have to understand, I'm not writing about some fleeting grudge because he ate my slice of cake. No. This is about life and death. My life. A month ago, exactly 4 weeks ago, I was sitting in Dr. Harrison's office, and he very dryly, very professionally, as if talking about the weather forecast, said, astrocytoma. Grade 2. It's been growing very slowly for the past couple of years, but its activity has recently spiked sharply. You have, at best, a month to get the surgery, otherwise it will start causing irreversible pressure on your motor functions. We can remove it completely, but it is expensive. Very expensive. I remember how that phrase, very expensive, sounded in my head like a heavier sentence than the name of the tumor itself. I'm not rich. I work, of course, but putting aside $300,000 isn't something I can do. My parents are retirees, living on modest Social Security, and they have their own set of health issues. The only person who could possibly help was my brother, David. He's 5 years older than me, 40, and he's raising his son, Ethan, alone. Ethan is my heart. He's only 8, and he's a little genius. David has his own small, fairly successful logistics business, but he constantly reinvests everything back into it, expanding, so he doesn't have millions of dollars lying around either. Family was our only resource. That same evening, we all gathered together, me, David, Mom, and Dad. I was sitting on pins and needles, waiting for someone to say, well, sorry, daughter/sister, but we can't help you. But David, my usually reserved and stern brother, looked at me with such warmth for the first time in a long time that I almost cried. He said, listen, Sarah. No time for sentiment. I'm shutting down that damned expansion project. Immediately. I'm putting those funds in. Mom and Dad are selling our old, useless plot of land in the countryside. All of it, that's your money. It's non-negotiable. We're going to pull you through. And that's where my month of hope began. The land sold in 2 weeks. David quickly converted his investments to cash, losing a significant amount in the process, I know, but he never mentioned it once. I felt so guilty, so grateful, that I simply couldn't find the words. Every day we called each other, checking the account balance. My parents prayed constantly. David just worked 20 hours a day to accelerate all his affairs. The account grew. The surgery was scheduled for the beginning of next week. Only a few $1,000s remained until the goal, a mere trifle that I was supposed to contribute myself. I was certain that was it. I dodged the bullet. I would live. Then, the day before yesterday, I was sitting at home, reviewing the documents for the clinic, when David called me. He was at work, and his voice sounded strange, muffled, as if he was talking from a basement. He didn't ask how I was or talk about the latest deposits, as usual. He just asked, listen, Sarah. What if you had to wait? Not next week, but, say, a month from now? Could you manage? How critical is it? I remember everything dropping inside me. I knew. This was the moment. This wasn't just a question, it was the beginning of the end. I initially thought he might have decided to get me a cheaper flight ticket, but in reality, he was looking for a way to rob me. I answered very clearly, almost yelling, David, a month guarantees paralysis, or worse. The doctor said, a month at most. What happened? And he, after a long, agonizing pause, said, just asking. Forget it. He hung up. I couldn't forget it. I became terrified, and fear always pushes me to the most drastic actions. I know the password to the old joint bank account we were using for this operation because it was the only place we were collecting everyone's money before transferring it to the clinic. I logged into the account, just to check, just to make sure everything was in place. I opened the statement, and there, in big, bold letters, was a single transaction, dated this morning. A transfer of the majority of the total amount. Almost all of it. To an account I didn't recognize, but the payment note contained only one word, Ethan. And, St. Jude's Children's Orthopedic Clinic. That's when I stopped breathing. My life, my surgery, everything we had sacrificed for, everything my brother had lost a ton of money on, it all went to my nephew. The reason this happened only became clear to me a few hours later. I called Mom, and she, in tears, told me everything. But I won't tell you now. I want you to understand how completely devastated I was by this betrayal, this cruel blow from my own flesh and blood. I don't know how to move forward. He didn't even ask. He just decided that his child was more important than my life. The worst thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies, it comes from the people who swear they're family. I still can't believe he looked me in the eyes and told me I was worth saving, while already planning to throw me to the wolves. When I logged into that bank account and saw the amount transferred, almost $280,000, gone, my brain just short-circuited. You know that feeling when you try to scream but no sound comes out, just a raw, tearing static in your chest? That was me. It wasn't just the money, it was the sheer, brutal act of it. David didn't just borrow it, he wiped out the account, the one thing standing between me and being permanently disabled, maybe worse. And he did it after asking me that chilling, seemingly casual question, how critical is it? He already knew. He was checking the clock on my doom. I spent the first hour in a state of suspended animation, just staring at the screen. Then the fury hit. A cold, surgical rage that made me want to burn everything he owned. But I knew I couldn't call him, not yet. I needed the full story. I needed to know why Ethan's needs suddenly trumped a life-or-death brain surgery. That's when I called Mom, Linda. She's usually the rock, the voice of calm, but when she answered, I heard that ragged, high-pitched sob that only comes when the world is truly ending. Mom, I saw the transfer. Tell me. What is it with Ethan? Why St. Jude's Orthopedic? I tried to keep my voice level, but it came out sharp, like breaking glass. She couldn't hold it together. Oh, Sarah, my sweet girl. David made me promise not to tell you. It happened so fast. Last week, Ethan was at soccer practice, and he just collapsed. They rushed him to the local clinic. At first, they thought it was just a bad fall, a fracture. But the tests, they found something wrong with his spine, an aggressive, rare form of juvenile scoliosis that's affecting his nerves. They said if they don't operate immediately, and I mean within days, he could lose the use of his legs. Paralyzed, honey. Our little genius, in a wheelchair forever. My heart, already a stone in my chest, dropped further. Paralyzed. Forever. That word, paralyzed, hit too close to home because that's exactly what Dr. Harrison warned me about if I waited too long. And St. Jude's is the only place? I asked, the rage battling with a terrifying empathy. The best specialists. They need to move fast to fuse the spine and correct the curve before it causes permanent damage. David called every specialist, every clinic. This operation. It's just as expensive as yours, Sarah. Maybe more, because it's specialized. They needed the money wire transferred today. They said it was his only chance to get him into the operating room this week. Mom paused, her voice cracking even more. David was devastated, honey. He didn't know what to do. He said he felt like he was choosing which of his children to save. His children. The irony was a physical ache. I'm his sister, his only sibling, but to him, I was just a difficult patient, a responsibility, while Ethan was his child. Mom started crying harder. He just didn't want you to worry and panic, thinking it would make your situation worse. He was going to explain after he secured Ethan's surgery, and then beg for a loan from his bank to try and cover your operation within the month. I hung up. I couldn't listen to her pathetic justifications anymore. David didn't want me to panic? No, David wanted to ensure his son's future without having to look his dying sister in the eye first. He made the decision unilaterally, gambling with my paralysis, and potentially my life, to save his son from a wheelchair. The moral dilemma was laid bare, ugly, and raw. On one side, my 8-year-old nephew, Ethan, a victim of cruel chance, facing lifelong paralysis. On the other side, me, his aunt, facing paralysis and potentially death from a rapidly growing brain tumor. The money, our $280,000, was enough for one life-saving operation, but not both. And David had already cast the die. I haven't called him back. I haven't seen Ethan. I just sit here in my apartment, staring at the calendar. 4 weeks since the diagnosis. 1 week until my scheduled surgery. And now, $0. Every headache, every slight twitch in my fingers, feels like the tumor expanding, laughing at David's choice. He thinks he bought us time? He bought me a ticking clock. And I still haven't decided if I should fight him for the money, knowing what it means for Ethan, or if I should just accept my fate and let the sickness take me. The tension is unbearable. I went to the bank, and it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about looking my brother in the eye and telling him that he is not God, and he doesn't get to decide which of us is worth saving. The conflict came to a head, and his reaction was everything I feared. I couldn't stay in my apartment anymore. The silence was deafening, and every second I spent staring at the walls, the image of Ethan, sweet, laughing Ethan, flashed behind my eyelids, quickly replaced by the clinical image of my own brain scan. The doctor's cold warning, irreversible pressure. I was caught between two absolute horrors, and David, my brother, the person who was supposed to be my protector, had just shoved me toward the abyss. I made a decision, a cold, calculated one fueled by self-preservation. I wasn't going to let him decide my fate. If he chose Ethan, that's fine, but he was going to face me and explain why his 8-year-old son's legs were more valuable than my entire life. I drove straight to his office downtown, a brutalist concrete building that matched his personality perfectly. I didn't want him to prepare his defenses. I walked right past his surprised secretary, Jane, who had been my friend since high school, and slammed his office door shut behind me. He was sitting behind his massive oak desk, pretending to look at shipping manifests. He saw the look on my face, and the color drained instantly from his face, leaving him pale and sick. The successful logistics CEO vanished, all that was left was a terrified man. Sarah. Listen, I was just about to call you, I was going to explain. He started, scrambling for excuses. I didn't let him finish. I walked right up to his desk, leaned in, and dropped my voice to a terrifyingly calm whisper. You transferred the money, David. You took $280,000 that was meant to keep me from becoming paralyzed, and you used it on Ethan. You gambled on my survival without even talking to me. You made a choice. Explain it. His shoulders slumped. He didn't try to deny it. I know it looks bad. It is bad, Sarah. But Ethan, his spine. The doctor gave us a window of 4 days to get the surgery or he's permanently disabled. You have a month, Sarah. 1 month. I did the math. I figured, if I could secure his spot, I could take out a quick, high-interest business loan, even sell the rest of my shares, and get your money back in 2 weeks. It's a huge risk, but it buys us both a chance. A chance? I laughed, a raw, ugly sound that didn't belong to me. You think you bought me time? You just bought my tumor time to grow. Dr. Harrison said at best a month. What if at best is already over? What if I start losing feeling next week, and you're still trying to get your high-interest loan? You took a guess with my life, David. You used me as a buffer. The tension in that room was suffocating. He stood up, running his hand through his short, sandy hair. You think this was easy? You think I didn't spend 3 nights straight staring at the ceiling, thinking about whose future I was destroying? I love you, Sarah. You're my sister. But Ethan is my child. He's 8 years old. He has his whole life ahead of him. You're 35, you're strong. I had to choose the person who had the least amount of time to recover, the one who was most defenseless. It was a terrible choice, but it was the only choice. That's not your choice to make. I screamed, finally letting the rage pour out. You are not the judge. You do not get to weigh my 35 years against his 8. You were supposed to help me, not execute a forced triage. And here came the real, agonizing conflict, the one that tore me apart. I knew he loved Ethan. I loved Ethan. The thought of that little boy, so full of life and questions, trapped in a wheelchair, was a paralyzing vision in itself. But so was the thought of me, Sarah Miller, fading away into a vegetative state because my brother played God with the family funds. What do you want me to do, Sarah? David yelled back, his own voice breaking. Call the clinic and tell them to cancel Ethan's surgery, to send the money back, so you can go first? Are you really telling me to condemn my son to paralysis so you can avoid it? I paused. The air was thick and heavy, charged with accusation. I want you to admit, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, that you chose him because he's your son, and I am not. And now, you fix it. You find the money. You don't get to save one of us and feel like a hero. You have to save both of us. Or you'll have to live with the fact that you killed your sister to save your son's legs. I turned and walked out, leaving him alone in that massive office, defeated. The situation was impossible. Ethan's surgery is scheduled for tomorrow. My life is ticking down to a critical stage next week. The money is gone. I forced the conflict, I drew the line, but now I'm standing on it, knowing that either way, someone in this family is going to suffer an irreversible loss. I thought I knew what true desperation meant until I had to choose between my own life and my nephew's ability to walk. The plot twist came not from my brother's actions, but from our mother, who had been silently living a lie that changed everything. The confrontation with David left me hollowed out, but strangely focused. I drove aimlessly for hours after leaving his office, the argument, his desperate defenses, my cold, sharp accusations, echoing in my head. I knew I had presented him with an impossible choice: secure my surgery and doom his son to paralysis, or proceed with Ethan's surgery and condemn me to a rapidly escalating illness. I finally pulled into the parking lot of a cheap motel outside the city limits. I couldn't go home. I needed space to hate him, but also space to acknowledge the crushing weight of his dilemma. Ethan was scheduled for surgery the next morning. If I went to the police or filed an immediate injunction against the hospital, I could freeze the funds and stop Ethan's operation, but the legal battle would take weeks, guaranteeing that both of us would miss our critical deadlines. I would be walking, but paralyzed by guilt. Ethan would be paralyzed physically. I realized I couldn't be the one to physically block that boy from getting the chance to run again. I just couldn't. I was staring down the barrel of my own mortality, but the thought of destroying Ethan's future was a fresh, cold horror. It didn't mean I forgave David, not for a second, but it meant I had to find another way. I had to find money now. I was sitting on the edge of the cheap, scratchy bed when my cell phone buzzed. It was Mom. Linda. I almost ignored it, still angry at her for being David's accomplice in secrecy. But something in me answered. Sarah? Where are you? David called. He told me everything. He's a mess, honey. He's talking about pulling Ethan from the surgery just to make sure you're safe. She sounded frail, but there was a strange, new clarity in her voice. Tell him not to, I snapped, rubbing my throbbing temples. Tell him to keep Ethan on the schedule. I'll figure something out. But I want to know one thing, Mom. Did you honestly think this was okay? Did you think sacrificing my chance was the right thing to do? She sighed, a long, weary sound. No, Sarah. It wasn't okay. But David was panicking. And when he said he was going to destroy his business to get another loan, I knew I had to step in. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I never wanted this secret to come out this way. What secret, Mom? The land sale money? You already gave it all. And here it came, the twist that slammed me back against the headboard of the bed. The one piece of information that changed the entire framework of the conflict, the moral dilemma, and the future of our family. The money from the land, yes, we gave that, Mom whispered, her voice barely audible. But the land, that land wasn't ours to sell. Not entirely. Your father and we've been holding on to a very large, old insurance policy your grandfather took out a long time ago. He insisted it be kept secret, for absolute emergencies. It's not a lot, maybe 35,000, but it was supposed to cover Dad's heart medications for the next few years. We lied. We told David we were selling the land for the full amount. I sat up straight. Mom, I don't understand. What are you talking about? The land sale gave us a little over 70,000, not the full 100 we put into your account, Sarah. The rest, the 30,000 and a bit, we took from the emergency policy. But that's not the secret. The real secret is the other account. The one Dad set up 15 years ago, after your last major health scare. He set it up in your name, using a power of attorney, and he's been quietly funneling half his Social Security check into it every month, plus small savings from his odd jobs. It was meant to be your absolute final safety net, separate from David, separate from everything. My head was spinning. A separate account? A secret fund set up by my quiet, unassuming father? How much, Mom? I asked, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He never told me the exact number, but he just told David today, after your fight. He broke down, Sarah. He couldn't let David sacrifice you. Your father called David and gave him the details of that account. He said it has enough in it to cover your operation, maybe even more. He wanted you both safe. He said he was going back to the bank first thing tomorrow to transfer everything to you, right before Ethan's surgery. The entire world shifted on its axis. The moral dilemma, my life versus Ethan's legs, was suddenly, violently, dissolved. My father, the silent, invisible figure in this whole drama, had been playing the long game, preparing for the worst, and now, his secret sacrifice was the ultimate turning point. But there was one last, brutal complication. David had this information now. He knew about the secret account, and he was under extreme pressure. Would he, in his panic, try to access that money first to cover the immediate gap left by his high-risk business decisions? Would he, in a final act of desperation, steal from the secret fund our father had created just for me? I knew David was driven by a powerful, animal instinct to protect his child. And I knew the only thing standing between him and my absolute security was a few hours until the bank opened in the morning. I was no longer fighting for the family's joint savings, I was fighting to protect my father's ultimate, desperate act of love. The greatest sacrifice wasn't made with money, it was made with truth. In the end, I realized that my father's secret wasn't just a safety net, it was a final, desperate attempt to force us to choose compassion over self-preservation. The moment Mom dropped the bomb about Dad's secret safety net, the sheer tension of the past 4 weeks snapped. My mind went from the agonizing choice of who lives to the immediate, frantic need to secure that final lifeline before David, driven by panic and paternal instinct, could touch it. I immediately drove from the motel back to the city. It was 3 a.m. Ethan's surgery was scheduled for 7 a.m. Dad had promised to make the transfer when the bank opened at 9 a.m. That gap, 6 hours, was a ticking clock of financial disaster. I called Dad, Richard, and woke him up. I didn't yell or accuse. I just asked him, Dad, what are the details of that account? I need to get there first. David knows. He might panic. Dad's voice was gravelly with exhaustion and shame. I can't give you the full access, Sarah. It requires my fingerprint for the large transfer. That was the security. But, honey, David is not a thief. He wouldn't touch that. He called me back after your fight, he was sobbing. He said he just wanted to make sure Ethan was safe, and then he was going to beg for a bank loan for you. He knows he messed up. I hung up, unconvinced. My brother had already proven he was willing to sacrifice me for his son. I couldn't trust him when lives were on the line. I drove straight to the bank's main branch, parking my car and just waiting for the first light of dawn. I called David's cell phone every 10 minutes, not saying anything, just letting it ring, a silent warning that I was watching. At 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the bank opened, David's black SUV pulled up, screeching to a halt near the entrance. He jumped out, his face drawn, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He saw my car immediately. He didn't hesitate. He ran toward me, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Sarah, please. Just listen. I know what Dad did. He told me everything. I came here, I was going to use the account number he gave me to wire my remaining business funds into it, the ones I was saving for expansion. I wanted to add security to it, so when Dad transfers the full amount, it's enough for both of you. I'm trying to fix it. I swear." His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked genuinely broken. Was he lying? Was this a desperate attempt to gain access? Before I could answer, my father pulled up in his old sedan. He stumbled out of the car, looking pale and frail. He rushed past David and came straight to my window. "Sarah." "David," Dad said, breathless. "Stop this. I just spoke to Dr. Harrison. I called him first thing. I told him what David did. And he told me the truth. The true, final turning point wasn't about the money. It was about a deliberate distortion of the facts. The doctor said your tumor, the astrocytoma, Sarah, is slow growing. The month maximum he gave you was a worst-case scenario to push the insurance company. He said that if you start chemo and radiation immediately, which is covered by your basic insurance, you can buy 6 to 8 more weeks. Safely. Your urgency was exaggerated, Sarah. Deliberately. But Ethan's spinal paralysis? That was genuine and immediate. David's choice, in the clinical reality, was the right one. He saved the life that was most at risk of immediate, irreversible damage. I felt the blood drain from my face. The doctor had manipulated me? The ultimate pressure, the ticking clock I had based my rage on, was a lie used to secure payment faster. David hadn't stolen my life, he had saved a life that was truly about to be ruined, using a resource that, while urgently needed, wasn't immediately critical. The full weight of the climax hit me. David had made a painful, agonizing choice based on one truth, Ethan's immediate paralysis, and one exaggeration, my immediate death. And I had been willing to destroy him, and potentially Ethan's future, over a perceived betrayal that was rooted in fear, not malice. We all stood there, David, Dad, and me, at the foot of the bank. Dad, having revealed his secret fund and the doctor's tactical lie, had finally brought clarity. He pulled out his bank card. "No more secrets," Dad said, his voice firm. "We access my account. We pay for both. And we forgive each other. Because this entire mess happened because one doctor lied, and one brother panicked. We are a family." Later that day, Ethan went into surgery successfully. The funds from Dad's secret account, combined with David's immediate business money, covered both my upcoming chemotherapy and Ethan's surgery, with enough left over for David's lost investment. I look back at the past month and the brutal conflict, and the biggest realization isn't about the money. It's about what we are willing to do to save the ones we love. David was ready to risk his business and my future for his son. Dad was willing to risk his own health and financial security for both of us. And I, in my fear, was ready to choose self-preservation over compassion. The story ends with Ethan recovering, learning to walk again, and me starting my chemo treatment. I still have a long way to go, but I'll walk into my surgery with the knowledge that my life isn't secured by a bank account, but by a family that, through absolute chaos and impossible moral choices, ultimately refused to let anyone fall. Was David right to sacrifice my timeline for Ethan's immediate need? I still don't have a clear answer. He was right clinically, but morally, he betrayed my trust. The pain of his decision lingers, a dull ache beneath the gratitude. I guess the truth is, sometimes family betrayal and heroic sacrifice are two sides of the same very ugly, very necessary coin. And sometimes, the most profound love is found in the darkest, most terrifying secrets.